Welcome to Powering Through Life, the podcast. I'm your host, Teresa Sims. I'm a coach, an author, wife, mom, survivor, and thriver. Each week on Powering Through Life, my guest and I will discuss a special topic that's close to their heart. Together, we will explore the challenges they have faced in life and learn what strategies and tools they have used to power through their life. So get ready to be inspired, motivated, and become a thriver. Hey, and welcome to Powering Through Life. You're really going to love this segment today. I have the most incredible Jaya McIntyre with me. And Jaya is a woman's empowerment coach, a mentor, an award-winning photographer who has dedicated her career to empowering clients to help them feel comfortable behind the lens. With nearly 3 decades of experience, she has earned a stellar reputation as a professional, creative, mentor, and talented photographer. Jaya is the driving force behind the Women's Inspired Book Project and Empire Art Photography and Coaching. Surviving breast cancer reshaped Jaya's mission to guide women towards self-love, balance, and discovering their new normal amidst the toughest life challenges. Jaya, welcome to Powering Through Life.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad that we can do this because I really do think this is a topic that needs to be discussed often. And
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter where we are. I know you're in Australia, I'm in Canada. It affects women and men around the world. And your topic today is the new normal after breast cancer. So do you want to give us a little bit of background behind your story?
So, do you want me to tell you a little bit about my journey through that story?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, two things happened around the same time. I had been working as a photographer for someone else for 17 years, and I decided that I was going to start my own business and I went about setting up a beautiful space to have a studio in. And just as I was launching out, spending all my marketing money, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Now, I accidentally found a lump. I was only 34 and I didn't realize that you could actually get breast cancer that young. I wasn't checking for the lump. Something had brushed past my chest area and I was like, oh, that feels weird. And then I found the lump. Now, I acted really quickly on it. I went to the doctor the next day, and a week later, I had that diagnosis. And a month later, instead of having my opening party at that new studio, I had a mastectomy. And then that was followed through with around 2 years of treatment. So it was a long, extensive journey for a 34-year-old who definitely had other life plans for those couple of years, and the studio space I had set up and the life that I was going to create. So, during that time of treatment, you transform completely, mentally and physically. I think in one way for me it was good, and in another way it was bad, because physically I didn't have anywhere near the fitness level that I did prior. And then when I got handed the all clear, your treatment's done, you can go back to work now, I physically actually wasn't ready to. And mentally, after having 2 years of treatment, I really wanted to. My mindset was a million miles an hour. I had all these things that I wanted to do and achieve, but physically I just couldn't keep up with what I wanted to do. And I found that really, really frustrating. There were many times where I would just be crying my eyes out that I had these goals and a vision for what I wanted to be achieving at that age, and the life that I had expected to have, and that I just couldn't actually do it. So that's where I needed to lean into the pivot and find a new normal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so it was just on one side, was it?
Yeah, just on one side.
And what kind of treatment did you receive?
So I had the mastectomy and a node clearance. And then because I was so young, they suggested I do some IVF and freeze some eggs in case I ever wanted to have children, because that might not have been a possibility after chemo. And so after I had done some IVF, frozen some eggs, I had some harsh chemo for around 6 rounds, just about 5.5, 6 months. And then I had a softer one for the following 15 months. And then during that time, just at the end of the harsh one, I also had radiation for a month.
Oh my
So
goodness.
layer upon layer upon layer, it's fairly extensive, and like, it is definitely there to keep you alive, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity to being able to have that. um but then the journey coming out of that was just not what I expected.
Oh, I can imagine. Thank you for sharing that, Jaya, because I didn't realize that chemo would destroy or possibly prevent the inability to get pregnant. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So I guess it depends what kind of chemo you're having. And because breast cancers are hormone based, obviously the chemo messes with your hormones. So at 34, I did go into full menopause during that time. And because I was really active on seeking out what can I'm doing, taking all the doctor's advice. I'm doing everything that the doctors are telling me and suggesting to do, but I'm also going to do my research on what I can do naturally to keep myself healthy, to bounce back from the treatment, and obviously to bring myself back out of menopause, because I was only going to be 36. There might have still been a chance for me to have children. So I was really lucky that the diet, the naturopath, and the acupuncture that I worked with, everything just worked in my favor on bringing my cycle back in. So I was only in that state for a certain period of time, and I came back out. Which I think for a woman at 36, I thought was a good thing. The joys of life is that I do get to go through that twice.
No, there's no
But
joy.
now I know how to deal with it. And acupuncture, I tell you, acupuncture and your naturopath will be your best friend.
That's good to know for a lot of
Yeah.
listeners. That's incredible. I really didn't realize. I mean, I guess if you've never experienced it, you've never gone through the process, you've never had anyone close that you could ask the questions of,
Yeah.
you don't realize the impact or the ramifications that this can cause, create, and disturb in
Yeah.
your
And I
lives.
think that the hardest thing, when I say that going back into real life and getting back into the new normal was I looked okay. Like I looked great. My hair was growing back. I'd been on the cleanest diet I'd ever been on for 2 years. I had some extra weight around me because of hormone imbalance. But like I did definitely look quite healthy. So to the outside world, they would look at me and go, "You're okay, let's go do this." But the inside world still just wasn't keeping up. And I think there's a very big gap in any health industry, I would say, across the world, is that invisible kind of illness. So for me, it was at the end of the illness, but like it was years of recovery for where I had got myself to. And for everybody, it's different. It will never be the same for everyone. Some people bounce back vibrantly, some people take much longer. For me, it just felt like baby steps. And because I had been such an energetic, outgoing person beforehand, had 3 jobs, a million things on the go at all time, uh, just learning not to be that busy was a lesson in itself.
Oh, I can imagine. It takes a lot of mental effort
Yeah,
to step away from that lifestyle and to focus everything you've got onto your body and your
yeah.
well-being and your mindset. And that's not the easiest thing in the world to do, is it?
It's not. And I was very lucky. I just had, at the time, I had an amazing coach who was very holistic. And I was actually going to her for some blocks that I had in business. And she was just working with me on every level. And she was actually with me when I got diagnosed. So I just stayed with her and she worked with me through the next few years. So I think in total, I was with her for about 5 years, just keeping that mindset right and focusing on what was important, focusing on what you could change and just letting go of the things that you couldn't. But absolutely mindset and every single day, like meditation was something that I introduced into my life from the day that I was diagnosed. And that was more just to calm my mind and distract my thoughts. But really, it was a win-win because it was doing good things at
Yeah,
the same time. And I've done that daily for about 11, 12 years now.
really. And what type of meditation is it? Is there a specific
So
type?
anywhere from a short 5 minute to 3 hour. So the shorter ones I will do in the morning, getting prepped and ready for the day. And the longer ones I might turn on as I fall asleep and then just listen to them as I go to sleep. And I just think that really helps keep that mindset on point.
Excellent. Maybe you could send me the list of the
Yeah,
meditations that you
yep.
listen to, because
Definitely give some suggestions.
yeah, because I think we can all use things like that, in anything we're facing in life. I mean, from day to
Yeah,
day stuff, it doesn't hurt to have um,
yeah.
that concentration, that focus on something other than stuff we're dealing with at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah, it just takes your mind away from it for a few moments and helps calm the body, changes the physiology, doesn't it, of the body, and gets it set for good things and wholesome things and
Well,
healthy things.
it does. And I guess I very much used it as a reframe for if I had a thought that was not a thought that was going to be healthy for me in the future, then that's where my meditation and my reframe would come in, that I would be putting the positive thoughts back in. And I really do believe in how powerful your unconscious mind is. Like going through that journey, I noticed things about myself, and the way I reacted, you know, to certain things that you might call triggering. Um, my body would be triggered when it didn't even need to be triggered, but it's because it had been triggered 100 times before that the beeping of the drip would cause for alarm in my body. The smell of hand sanitizer would make me think I was in a, you know, scary space because unfortunately sometimes with chemo, you might end up in the emergency ward more than you want to, type thing. And all the things that you would hear and be in there would be triggering to me. So like when my husband leaves the key in the car and it beeps at him that the key is in the car, instantly that's like a sound that triggers me. But obviously over time, I've just learnt to reframe that and
Yeah,
move that along.
I found that after my car accident, the sirens going off at any point
Yeah.
in time would put me right back into that truck where I was, almost killed. It it
It's
just
crazy
sets
what
you
your mind
off,
can
and
do.
it's fight, flight, panic, you name it, it's there.
Yeah.
But and learning how to reframe it is by saying, you know what, I'm okay. I'm safe at this point in time. I'm not there. I'm here.
Yeah,
Just breathe, and just breathing through it really does help a lot, doesn't it?
absolutely. Absolutely.
So you had a lot of overstimuli, I guess is the word,
Yeah.
from your experience. And if you were to give me an idea of what reframing means, because maybe our listeners don't know what that is, can you explain that?
So I guess reframing, like for me, because I found it before I even knew what it was, or maybe I knew what it was and just found my version of it. Um, but the second I would start to think a negative thought, about perhaps this cancer is going to kill me, I would reframe it and go, no, I'm going to do what it takes to remove the cancer, get myself healthier, and live a life, full of abundance. So it's the opposite. Reframing is the opposite of what you're saying if it's a negative thing, and then give it a positive. So you could almost think of it like an affirmation.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's the way I use it.
I like that. That's beautiful. And it's a powerful tool. And it's something that's used quite often in NLP and timeline therapy, correct?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess for me, the biggest thing that and I think probably most people, like when you look at yourself in the mirror and you're brushing your hair or something, for me, I see a very big scar from here to here. And it would be instantly easy to think about the loss and what that scar has caused in your life. But when I see it, I actually just thank it for saving my life, because without that scar, I wouldn't be here.
Absolutely.
So it's that little, if you can flick it, I think it holds you in good stead. And eventually, when you do that enough, you won't say the negative things to yourself anymore.
Yeah, very true. I mean, I look at some of the things I have, the scars and whatever, that a lot of us have. And I just look at it and think, you know what? I kind of look at them like I'm a warrior. I have battle scars.
Absolutely.
I have survived a life. I'm still
Yeah.
here. And I have proof. So it's
Yeah.
a good thing. You're right. We need to take a different look at it, and it doesn't matter. Um, it does matter how we do it, but putting the spin on it and putting it into a positive really
Yeah.
makes the change in the brain and then the conscious unconscious mind, and gets us
Yeah.
moving forward into the life that we want, like you said, the life of abundance and
Yeah.
powerful tools. What else
Absolutely.
did you do, Jaya? Like, I know you had mentioned a diet, a very clean eating. I'm interested
Uh,
in that. Can you explain what clean eating?
so I guess when you research what causes cancer, like I pick, so instantly, like straight after surgery, I had to have a few months off work. Like you never know when you're going to get back to work, but instantly, because I hold a camera and it's very physical, I couldn't go back to work. So I knew that I was going to have a few months off recovering from that surgery. And being a really active person, I knew I was going to be bored. So I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do to fill my days? Like, how am I going to sit around awake for 12 hours a day at least? What am I going to do? Because I couldn't do my housework. I didn't really do any cooking. Like there was a lot of things that I couldn't do instantly, that my husband, who's my absolute rock, took over and had to do everything. And I think that in itself, like, is a real culture shock for a partner to suddenly have to step in and do everything. Because sometimes you are in a relationship where you share the load, and sometimes the load is split differently. But when someone has to do 100% of that load, it really is a lot on the other person. And then for me, not doing anything is a lot on my mental state. So I just was like, right, I'm going to read a little bit about what causes cancer and what can help cure cancer, and what can you do to help the medication that you're taking, and what can you do naturally in your lifestyle and your diet and the different things. And unfortunately, when I read these books, I was like, oh my goodness, it's in my makeup, it's in my shampoo, it's in my deodorant, like all of these things that we use on our bodies on a daily basis. There are chemicals in there that are building up in your system that you actually don't need. It's in the preservatives that you eat in your food. When preservatives are tested, this is something that fascinated me. When preservative numbers are tested, so say you've got a number 457, it's tested alone to the point of breaking, and then it's pulled back a little bit, and that is allowed. So as long as you're not at the breaking the cell point, it is allowed. But then what is not tested is if you've got a biscuit and it's got 5 preservatives in, those 5 preservatives are never tested together. They're only individually tested, and then they are sprinkled onto a biscuit and handed to you to eat. So I just went back to trying to go preservative free. When I pick up a packet, like if I eat processed food and it's a packet, I'll look how many numbers are in. If you've got over 2 numbers, I don't even think about you. Because the more numbers you have in there, the more likelihood that it is a breaking point for your body, but they've never tested it. And then one of the other things that there's quite a lot of research done around is that sugar feeds cancer. And in Germany, like when they are having their chemotherapy, it actually has a little bit of sugar with it. So the sugar goes straight to the cancer and the chemo follows the sugar. Whereas in Australia, we don't even acknowledge that. And our doctors and oncology system don't even acknowledge that. When I talk to my oncology doctors about diet, they were like, it's neither here nor there. But like there's research done all the way around the world about what will make you feel better when you're going through those kinds of treatments, and also what will enhance your lifestyle. So Gerson therapy was something that I looked at, which is just vegetable juicing. Uh, and I did quite a lot of that because it's very hard to get your nutrition in when you're not feeling well. So when you're constantly feeling nauseous and you don't feel like eating, vegetable juice was the way that I got my nutrition in. And there's a whole lot of other stuff that goes with it, but it's all about getting rid of the inflammation, getting rid of things that your body doesn't need, and then, just giving you the nutrition that you do need to survive and thrive. And even though I say I had a long journey back to full health, every week and every month like was a stepping stone for me because I constantly focused on it.
Oh, what a journey. I mean, you talk about the processed foods, it is a massive destruction for the human body.
Yeah.
I heard someone the other day, I'm a cycling fan freak because that was my sport when I was young. And I heard a cyclist talking about nutrition, and they were saying, talking about processed foods, and they were saying even a potato, when you cook a potato, is processed. It's taking the raw form of a food and
Yeah.
changing the chemical makeup of it. And even the simplest thing is broccoli, raw broccoli versus boiled broccoli versus steamed broccoli. It all
Yeah.
changes the chemical makeup of that vegetable.
And that's just how you cook it. So
Yeah.
imagine like what you cook it in, like the
Yeah.
type of oil that you choose or something like that has an even more profound impact on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I am one that I like to try to stay away from a lot of processed foods as well. We do a lot of our own baking. We do a lot of canning, preserving, dehydrating of everything. We go right to the farms. We get the stuff from the vegetables and food from the farmers. We know exactly where our meat comes from.
Yeah. And
There's
that's
times,
important.
yeah, it is important, and we need to do our due diligence. We can't just take for granted that the stuff we get at certain places is good
Yeah.
for us. It might fill us, but it's also, I also
And
read a study that it's addictive.
especially in the when you look, I don't know about in Canada, but in Australia, like we have these health ticks, and I do not even know how they get the health ticks. But when you say things are addictive, with sugar is very addictive, and having quit it completely, and then sometimes, like in my early, because I've been 11 years now without sugar, and that's not like at Christmas time, my family will lay out the spread and I'll be a little bit naughty here and there. And as soon as you're addicted back into it, you suddenly start craving it and hunting it down again. It takes me quite a considerable amount of time to be really strict on myself to not have the sugar. And then the other thing is you have to be careful that if you are trying to have sugar free, that you're not choosing something that is equally like a sugar alternative that is actually bad and chemical for you, because equally that's going to be bad for you in another way. So yeah, you have to be really careful when you're quitting one thing, you're not replacing it with another thing. But just unprocessed stuff
Yeah.
is definitely the better way to go, and knowing where it comes from.
Absolutely. Did you try using honey? Is that a good substitute for sugar?
It still has, like, think about it as if you're diabetic. So honey still has it spikes your insulin levels, or however
Okay.
your sugar. So what you want to think about is literally eating a diet like a diabetic would. So I do have a tiny bit of honey here and there. I really love the flavor of honey. I use something called xylitol, which is there's two types. You can have it from corn, or you can have it from a birch tree. I have it from the birch tree because I find that if you're going to go for the corn one, you've got to be careful it's not genetically modified.
Yes.
So I have the tree version. It tastes like sugar. I cook with it. Nobody ever questions me. So now at Christmas time, I do all the desserts at Christmas. I make exactly what everybody wants, except I make it gluten-free and it's got xylitol in it. And nobody ever questions, like, what it tastes like, because it tastes delicious, but it's not spiking your insulin levels,
That's
which is
interesting.
what's important. It's
Yeah,
not causing inflammation.
yeah. And you're not putting something that is foreign almost into your body that shouldn't
Yeah.
be there. Yeah, that's brilliant. And like you mentioned the sugar cravings and all that sort of stuff. That's where your powerful mindset comes back into play.
But
To
it
to
does
have
come
to
into play.
resist, but it also at the same time causes a lot of stress on the body having to put that, like, no, I can't, I don't want that. I am not going to ingest that.
Yeah.
Ugh, it can be
It
stressful.
definitely, you've almost got to reframe that too. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, and like I said, like, you will catch me having sugar here or there. Because I did a lot wedding photography at the time, I used to be like, I'll only have sugar when I'm at a wedding and the bride offers me cakes. But like, if you're at a wedding 3 times a week and you're eating cake 3 times a week, it's still, for my liking, it's too much sugar. So I had to change my rules around when I do eat sugar, when I don't eat sugar. And I know that when I let it go for periods of time, like Christmas that spreads out across a week, if I let it go for that week, I'm literally will mess up a month, because I'll be back in the cycle. And that's the way the food companies want it. They are the same. When they test something, they push it to a threshold. Like, think of anything that you like. I think of it like we have iced coffee, like a milk in the fridge that you can buy at the shop. And the sugar content in that is so high. It could probably be a third of it and we would still find it delicious. But it is so high that it becomes addictive, that you're craving that thing.
We really need to be more conscious about what we choose, what to purchase, what we choose to put in our bodies, and
Absolutely.
make the
Absolutely.
conscious effort to say, nope, this is not good for me. I choose something else. Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant, brilliant. So, how did you get through I know you've done a lot of mind work, if you want to call it that. You're sorry, master practitioner, is that correct? In timeline
Yes. Yeah.
therapy and NLP. Do you want to explain how that has helped you on your journey?
So that's actually only been recently, but what I didn't realize was the counselor that I did have all those years ago, she probably had a little bit of NLP tools that she would utilize in amongst other things. She was a kinesiologist and a counselor. So she just had these beautiful array of modalities that she would use on. And she never actually told me, I'm going to do NLP on you now. I'm going to do this on you now. Like I never really knew what it was. And same again, like a few years into my journey, I just started having some things that kept popping up health wise. And I was like, why is this happening? Like I'm being so good to my and kind to myself now as opposed to what I used to be. Why is this happening? And I searched out a lady who was a healer. Um, and I did a whole lot of work with her, and that worked really well. I had a huge amount of success with it. And then a few years later, when I studied NLP, it clicked. Everything that I had done with her was NLP. Everything that she had done to help me with healing was NLP. Now, I came into NLP for a completely different reasons. One of my clients was an NLP teacher, and I had just loved what I saw. And I thought, oh, I'm going to do this for my confidence and to boost my mindset, and confidence and sales skills in business and that kind of thing is why I went into that. It was more for me. And then when I was there, I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I've had done across the last 10 years in many different ways, but no one's ever explained to me that it was NLP. So all these breakthroughs that I'd already had, um, were an NLP tool. And then obviously learning it yourself, and the penny drops, I guess, about why you might have created an illness in your life, and where it came from and who you were mirroring and all of those things, like just mind blown. I don't think you can even really explain how mind blowing some of those breakthroughs are. Um, but definitely I think will help in the future not to create those same patterns again, because health issues are really just patterns that we're setting ourselves up, we're keeping ourselves safe. I know for me, like one of my biggest patterns is when things get busy and there's going to be extra work load on, then in the past, I would have created a health issue to make sure I didn't have to do the work. Whereas
Oh,
now I know it's safe to do the work, and I'm not going to need the health issue burnout, Um, so that's probably for me one of the biggest things that I took away from that, is that it really is safe to trust myself and do what I need to do, and I'm not going to face burnout again because of it.
yeah, absolutely. And I know with NLP and timeline therapy, it's all a lot of it is based on the unconscious mind. And it holds all the answers. It holds the keys to everything and who we are, and the truths about all of us, like
Yeah,
ourselves. All we just need to do is tap into that and trust it. And for
yeah,
some of us, that's extremely difficult to do because of these patterns, these lifelong patterns that we've had. But if you just slow down, listen to yourself, listen to, as Jen Forrester would say, listen to her, and
yeah.
who you are inside, and you listen to your unconscious mind. It has the answers, it has the keys to unlock our abundance, our joy, and our plan for the future. And it's a beautiful gift we can give ourselves.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, it certainly is. So, Jaya, if there were 3 tips that you would like to leave the listeners with around um, your breast cancer experience, what would those be?
Well, I would just say, like, for any health experience. So just do not leave it. I know that there's people in my life that still haven't gone and had a mammogram, or have had a lump for a couple of years and not got it checked out. And it doesn't have to be a breast cancer lump. This could be something else going on for them. But For me, knowing what I know about our health system is that early detection of anything will be the difference between having a quick scrape and biopsy and get it gone, or a full-on 2-year, 5-year health journey. I know what I would prefer to choose. So I always say act on it quickly, because you're going to thank yourself in the future. Start the healthy lifestyle today. Don't wait for a health journey to actually knock you on the door and say, hey, you've got no choice about this. It doesn't mean you have to be a saint. You don't have to quit everything instantly, but just start cutting back. So, if you've got too much alcohol in your life, you've got too much sugar in your life, you've got too much junk food in your life, just cut it back. And then you'll get to a point where you're like, hey, I actually don't need that at all. And then start with your mindset as well, because already having my coach prior diagnosis and having the attitude that I did around personal development and growth and things like that definitely made a difference for how I handled everything. So start with the mindset, start with some morning mindset, and I'll definitely drop some links for who I listen to, just even on YouTube. There's lots of free meditation out there that you can listen to and just get your mindset right for the day to go on with whatever you need to do. And then, if your mindset is good, and you're in a good place, then the rest of what's going on in life will be the same.
Yeah, absolutely. How about resources? I mean, I think resources, like you mentioned, reading and ask,
Yeah.
I would ask questions. I would want to speak to someone else who has gone through it, like your nutritionist, your naturopath,
Yeah. So
chiropractic.
I think the important thing is, when you're finding resources, is like Dr. Google is definitely not your best answer. Anybody can put anything on the internet. There is no there is no editor that comes along and fixes mistakes or says whether this is true or false. Even in Wikipedia, which people think is quite, we can go in there and edit that ourselves, and then nobody can edit over the top of what you have said. So you have to be really careful of where you get your research from. So like for me, obviously, when I did my research, I was like, where are they curing cancer? Where are the best centers for curing cancer happening, and what are they doing? And at the time, like in Australia, obviously, I think there was one for us down in Melbourne. We're very lucky. I have a place called Bloomhill on the Sunshine Coast here, which not everyone has, but it's a cancer center with a lot of different modalities in it. They had nutritionists, they had yoga, things that were like with the yoga, it's slowed down and it's more gentle, particularly for people who are going through cancer treatment. So like if you have a place like that, tap into it. And if you have funds to donate to places like that, donate to them, because at some stage, someone is going to use those kind of centers. But also, so like I said, just did my research on where these things were happening around the world, what they were doing, and then I took away what I could. Like from Germany, I quit my sugar from Gerson therapy. I did a lot of juicing, and I cut back my red meat. I couldn't cut it out completely. That's just not who I am, but I definitely didn't have to eat it 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. So I quit alcohol during my journey. And I didn't go back to it on a regular basis. I go back to it on a special occasions. And I can drink a lot on a special occasion, and then I can go 6 months without drinking anything. So like it doesn't control me like it used to. I used to be a drinker, hard day at work, have some wine at the end of the day. That's how I got through my day. And it's funny now, I have a hard day at work and I don't even think about having a drink. Like it's just not something that you think about. But yeah, like I said, if it's a party and there's a cocktail to be had, I'm right there with you. But I do try, even when I'm that now, I try to make smarter choices around the sugar and things like that. Because, like I said, you fall off the bandwagon, it is made to be addictive, and then you find it hard to get back on. But yeah,
Yeah.
just be careful about where you find your research. If it's not widely publicized and endorsed by doctors and endorsed by large communities, it probably is still a bit experimental.
Yeah, I think it's like really we need to do our own due diligence
Yeah,
to do exploration to find our own pathway through it and
yeah.
find out each we're so individual, all of us are so completely different, but the situation could be the same or close to the same. We need to find what works for us, but
And like I
really,
said, or if you can be talking to your doctor and naturopath about it, like if the neighbor hands you something over the fence and says, I've heard this is a great thing, Uncle Joe says, blah, 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 talk to your doctor and naturopath about it. Because I think that's the thing is that we quite often, like, especially if we're into naturopaths, we think the doctor is on one side and the naturopath is on the other side and they cannot come together. And sometimes it's just a matter of they haven't been educated in that way. But if you truly, whatever your health journey is, that's probably the other biggest tip is like, I didn't go to a regular GP because they are just a tick and flick, diagnose everyone, don't know too much about cancer. I went to a women's health doctor that specialized in cancer. So on her days off, she was reading articles about what was happening around the world. She was going to conferences about what was happening around the world. I didn't want to go to the guy on the corner who had no idea. I wanted to go to someone who was taking on a bit of extra knowledge. So just be careful about who you're going to with that.
yeah. And with that being said, trust is a huge factor in all of this. You
Yeah,
really need to trust who you're having help from and assistance
absolutely.
from. Yeah. Jai, do you have a favorite quote that you like
My
to?
favorite quote is this too shall pass.
And isn't that the
I
truth?
think someone gave that to me in those first couple of weeks of diagnosis when, because I was 34, when I was ringing people and saying, hey, I've got some news that I want to share with you, they actually thought I was going to say I was pregnant because that's where I was at in
Oh,
life.
oh,
And I was like, no, actually, it's not good news, it's bad news. And then I had to tell them my story. And then the sad thing is that we really do have a big family and friend circle. And as you tell people that journey, it's their experience, their grief for the first time. And so I had to tell that 100 times over. And someone said to me, this too shall pass. And
yeah.
I have kept that every step of the way.
Yeah, that's a good one. I love that. I really,
Yeah,
truly
it
love
is a
that.
it is a goodie.
Yeah, definitely. How can our listeners get in touch with you, Jaya?
Come and follow me on social media. So Empire Art Photography. And they can follow me. And I guess it is a mix of photography, and I specialize in personal branding and women's empowerment, obviously. So if you're in business or you just want a little bit of a positive boost here and there, that's definitely the best way to reach out. And I'm happy if you're going through a similar journey and you want a little bit of extra info, I'm happy for you to reach out about that.
That'd be great. And I will include all your social media links when we post the segment. So I really, really think that the listeners, you really need to get in touch with Jaya. Follow her on her social media. She is an exceptional photographer. I've seen her work. And if only I was closer.
Well, more than happy to travel anywhere in the world.
Okay.
You get a handful of beautiful people in Canada, I'll come to you guys.
There we go. There we go. Thanks, Jaya, so much for sharing your journey. And I really do appreciate you taking the time to share this personal story that you've gone through and come out on the other side of. You're a beautiful spirit, a beautiful soul, and it shines through. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Listeners, get in touch with Jaya. You won't be sorry you did. And I honestly, truly believe that there is going to be several golden nuggets in this segment for a lot of people out there who are experiencing something similar to what Jaya went through. Don't wait to get seen by a doctor. If you find something, go now. Right, Jaya?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Listeners, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us on Powering Through Life. Thank you to my lovely guest, Jaya McIntyre, and we'll see you again on Powering Through Life next time. Thank you for listening to Powering Through Life, where we explore life's challenges and learn valuable insights from my guests about how they have powered through their lives to survive and thrive. We can learn incredible lessons by sharing and motivating the world through conversation. You can access all of the Powering Through Life episodes on my website, teresasims.com, YouTube, Facebook, and Spreaker. So join us again next time for another inspiring conversation.